Part 36. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 351. Chen Hao stood in the sky, watching the battle below through Xiaoying's ability. When he saw that the little diamond was held by Jilin, Chen Hao frowned. No. Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. The breath of the little diamond has not weakened, but it is still increasing. Jilin, who was holding the little diamond, seemed to feel something wrong, and his pupils condensed slightly. A light suddenly appeared in the gap of Jilin's fist. The colorful light came out from the gap of Jilin's fist. Jilin's clenched fist began to be forcibly stretched open. Jilin's pupils trembled, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. You guy. Although Jilin's palm was forcibly stretched open, Chen Hao could see that in Jilin's palm, the little diamond squatted on Jilin's thumb, and raised his left hand to press against Jilin's palm. Her size has increased from the size of a 10-meter giant just now to hundreds of meters now. Jilin's palm, which is a kilometer wide, can no longer hold the little diamond at this moment. At this moment, Diamond was emitting a colorful halo all over her body, with her eyes closed. Behind Diamond, 3 pairs of dazzling colorful diamond wings spread out on Diamond's slender shoulders. Diamond's eyes suddenly opened, revealing a pair of dazzling diamond eyes. She stepped on Chi Phosphorus's fingers, and her body flew out of Chi Phosphorus's palm. Diamond's body flew out, and 3 pairs of dazzling colorful diamond wings spread out behind her. At this moment, Diamond's body was hundreds of meters long, but at this moment her body was wrapped in colorful light, and her body size was still growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Chi Phosphorus saw this, his pupils condensed. How is it possible? Boom, accompanied by 2 loud noises. Diamond stood on the ground. Because of her huge size and heavy body, the moment her feet landed, the ground shook violently and 2 pits suddenly sank. Diamond stood on the ground. Her body was slightly shorter than Chi Phosphorus's body, but it was also close to 10,000 meters long. She was a giant at the moment, standing between heaven and earth, and the clouds could only reach the waist of Little Diamond. Little Diamond frowned, holding 2 swords in both hands, and staring at Jilin. Jilin's face was full of astonishment and disbelief. Even Jilin could not imagine that there was still a being in this world who could fight him. Seeing this, Chen Hao was shocked. When did Little Diamond have such a huge body? No. Suddenly, Chen Hao realized something. Although Chen Hao had Little Diamond, he had never seen Little Diamond fight. Little Diamond had always acted with Xiaoying and Lan, and Chen Hao did not participate. Chen Hao had no idea about Little Diamond's abilities. Chen Hao did not know how strong the 8th level gem realm was and what abilities it could have. In daily life, Little Diamond did not need to show his abilities. Perhaps, the Little Diamond in front of him, which was close to 10,000 meters in size, was the true posture of Little Diamond after reaching the 8th level gem realm. Chen Hao remembered what the database said. The gem energy obtained by Little Diamond is the collection of all the gem energy accumulated by the gem star for more than 3,000 years. That is to say, at this moment, Little Diamond's 8th level gem realm is equivalent to the collection of all the energy bred by the gem star for more than 3,000 years. What a huge, terrifying energy. It seems that I have underestimated Little Diamond's strength, Chen Hao muttered. On the battlefield, Chi Phosphorus's face sank, and he waved his hand. White light shone, and a red supergiant red sword appeared in Chi Phosphorus's hand. Chi Phosphorus stared at Little Diamond, pretending. You don't think that you can compete with me just because you are bigger. I am Chi Phosphorus. For you ants, I am the true god from ancient times. Even your so-called main god was created by us. I am the god of your main god. Chi Phosphorus raised the red sword in his hand, and with the wind, the tip of the red sword was aimed at Little Diamond. Do you think you can kill gods? Red Phosphorus narrowed his eyes. Diamond frowned and stared at Red Phosphorus. She said slowly, in my opinion, the world is not as great as my master. If you are the enemy of my master, gods can be killed, demons can be destroyed, and all things can die. After the voice fell, Diamond's pupils turned cold, and her body moved instantly. Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, the earth suddenly sank, forming a huge canyon. Swish, accompanied by the sonic boom caused by the air being torn apart, Diamond's figure appeared in front of Red Phosphorus. Turning his waist, he slashed at Red Phosphorus' body with two swords. Red Phosphorus reacted and raised the red sword in his hand. Clang! The sound of weapons colliding rang out. This loud noise shook the ground. Red Phosphorus blocked the attack, and his body collided with the terrifying power of Diamond. He took 3 steps back and barely stabilized his body. Red Phosphorus looked at Diamond, frowning. Why? When Diamond saw that the attack was blocked, she spread her wings and retreated hundreds of meters. Red Phosphorus looked at Diamond, his pupils trembling, his face full of disbelief. Why can you have such a strong power? You are obviously just a beast. Why can you have such a strong power? Little Diamond said, my existence comes from my Lord, my strength also comes from my Lord. Little Diamond raised the 2 knives in her hands and stared at Red Phosphorus. You don't understand, and you don't need to understand. You threaten my Lord, then you deserve to die. Little Diamond spoke cleanly, and she moved. She put her hands in front of her and waved her waist. The double knives rotated along with Little Diamond's body. Little Diamond's body was spinning crazily like a top. During the rotation process, strong winds were blowing all around, driving it at a terrifying speed, and the airflow formed a strong wind. Clouds and mist gathered in the sky. A giant tornado with a colorful halo rose from the ground. The wind has gone crazy, and so have the clouds covering 1,000 miles. Chen Hao was tens of thousands of meters away from the battlefield, but at this moment, the clothes on his body were also rustling in the strong wind. Chen Hao seemed to realize something. His body disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he appeared in space. Looking towards VAF Star through space, you can see a typhoon eye forming where the small diamond is, and the surrounding clouds are gathering crazily where the small diamond is. The oxygen was blocked by the airflow, and because the speed was too fast, the oxygen burst into flames. At this moment, the little diamond turned into a 10,000-meter high flame tornado, rushing towards the Red Phosphorus at an extremely fast speed. Red Phosphorus gritted his teeth. Asshole! Do you think you are strong? The Red Phosphorus held the red sword. He stepped on it and rushed towards the flame tornado in front. The red sword in his hand glowed with red light, and the tip of the sword spit out a giant sword light of 10,000 meters. Red Phosphorus stood still and swept his sword towards the flaming colorful tornado in front of him. Boom! The moment the sword light hit the flame tornado, the sword light was directly shattered. Red Phosphorus pupils condensed. How is that possible? The flame tornado swallowed up the Red Phosphorus in an instant. Ah! A shrill scream sounded. The diamond double swords carried flames and passed through Red Phosphorus's body countless times in an instant. Red Phosphorus's body instantly turned into pieces of meat, from pieces of meat to minced meat, and from minced meat to vaporized. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 352. Diamond stopped turning. The flame tornado dissipated. Diamond appeared. Little Diamond slowly closed his eyes, and his huge body shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the little Diamond returned to normal human size. Crash! The violent rain fell from the sky, and the heavy rain slapped the earth that had become uneven. Chen Hao's figure appeared next to Xiao Diamond, and he looked around. Just now this was Thunder Silver City, but now what Chen Hao saw was a rugged canyon. With one move, this originally flat place turned into a canyon. During the battle between Little Diamond and Red Phosphorus, every step they took became a huge pit. The flame tornado transformed from Diamond's attack just tore open a canyon 1,000 meters deep on the ground and ravines blown out by the strong wind. The earth has changed. Chen Hao looked at the Little Diamond beside him. The Little Diamond changed back to his harmless appearance. At this moment, Little Diamond was squatting on the ground. She looked at the stones on the ground, and then picked up a stone. Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond's actions and showed a hint of doubt. What are you doing? When Little Diamond came back to her senses, she looked at Chen Hao. When she saw Chen Hao, Little Diamond stood up and said, Master. As he spoke, Little Diamond opened his hands. On the palm of her white little hand, there was a very common pebble, which looked nothing special. What's wrong? Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond and asked doubtfully. When Little Diamond saw Chen Hao's demeanor, she said, This is the guy named Red Phosphorus. Ah, Chen Hao was stunned. He looked at the stone in Diamond's hand again. But still can't see anything special. Database, check it, Chen Hao said. A blue picture was projected from the database and appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was detected that there was a spiritual body attached to the stone. Seeing this sentence, Chen Hao understood. The stones are indeed stones, but apart from the stones, there is also a spiritual body inside, and the owner of this spiritual body is Red Phosphorus. Red Phosphorus is not dead? Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond. He's not dead. Little Diamond nodded slightly. All his energy has been destroyed by me, and now there is only one spiritual body left. The spiritual body needs matter, otherwise it will disperse and turn into countless invisible messages. By that time, he will really dead. And now his spiritual body is attached to this little stone. Chen Hao stretched out his hand and took the small stone. Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao, who was playing with the small stone, and said, I used my mind control ability to immobilize him. Now he can't escape. If the master wants to kill it, I can directly use my mind destruction ability to kill it, destroy. Hearing this, Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond. Can he still threaten us now? Little Diamond shook his head. It can't be done. He only has a mental body now, and the mental body is very fragile and cannot pose a threat to us. Chen Hao smiled. That's enough. I just have something to ask him. Little Diamond nodded slightly. Her wrinkled eyebrows had unstretched, and once they unstretched, they regained their splayed eyebrows. She said with a grimace, Master, I wasted a lot of time today. I have to go to Gemstar. Looking for Black Jewel. Seeing Xiao Diamond's sad face, Chen Hao smiled. Well. Suddenly, Chen Hao seemed to realize something, and his smile froze. Wait a minute. Little Diamond was startled, and she looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao frowned and said, Your strength, isn't it enough? Chen Hao has realized that Little Diamond has the ability to predict the future. She has always wanted to improve her strength because she predicted that there would be strong enemies in the future that would threaten herself. In order to protect himself as the master, Little Diamond would crazily want to improve his strength. Chen Hao initially thought that Diamond's crazy improvement in strength was to deal with Red Phosphorus. But now that the Red Phosphorus has lost its threat, Little Diamond is still afraid that he is not strong enough. Could it be that, in the future, there is still a terrifying existence? Little Diamond hummed, and she said with a grimace, My strength is quite weak. With such a weak strength, when the powerful guy comes, I won't be able to protect the master. If I can't protect the master, then... Chen Hao didn't speak, but silently stretched out his hand, and his hand landed on Little Diamond's head. Little Diamond was slightly startled, and she looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao stroked her hard diamond hair and watched Little Diamond raise her face and look into her diamond-like eyes. Chen Hao smiled, Thank you for your hard work. In the past, Chen Hao thought that Little Diamond just had a phobia of fire, but now Chen Hao realized that she had just predicted the future. She only felt pressure after foreseeing the future crisis. Faced with that pressure, she could only choose to become crazy and strong. But I didn't know it at the time, and thought she just had a unique personality. Now it seems that I misunderstood her. Little Diamond's diamond-like eyes glowed with crystal luster. Master. Chen Hao smiled. If you hadn't been here today, the situation would probably have been very bad. Thanks to you. Little Diamond had a smile on her face. Chen Hao stroked her hair and slowly took his hand back. There was joy on Little Diamond's face. Then, Master, I'll go first. Chen Hao nodded slightly. A pair of diamond-like wings spread out behind Diamond, and she flapped her wings and flew up. Under Chen Hao's gaze, she turned into a point of light and disappeared into the sky. Chen Hao looked at the direction where Diamond left, and his smile slowly faded. In other words, there will be enemies stronger than red phosphorus in the future. And Diamond has already predicted it. What kind of existence will the enemy in the future be? Chen Hao didn't know. But now Chen Hao had other things to do. He looked at the small stone in his hand. The spirit body should be what ordinary people often call the soul. As far as I know, if the Lord God, Kshatriya, and others are killed, as long as the Godhead is still there, they can be resurrected. Even if the Godhead is broken into pieces, they can be resurrected as long as enough time is spent. But, if they encounter an existence of the level of Little Diamond, the Godhead can also be destroyed without any residue left. From this point of view, the Lord God will also die. And now, Chen Hao looked at the stone in his hand. After reaching the level of a pseudo-planet, even if all the substances that make up the body are destroyed, the soul can escape and attach to other substances to avoid death. This is quite interesting. Chen Hao looked at the stone in his hand and said lightly, since your soul still exists, I also have questions to ask you. But, before that, Chen Hao held the stone and looked at the messy land in front of him. Change. A card appeared in front of Chen Hao. Gene Evolution Radiant Goddess Butterfly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 353. Change. Xiaode's figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. Xiaode slowly opened her eyes and looked at Chen Hao. She smiled. Master. Chen Hao smiled and said, I have something to do next, and I will leave it to you to restore Laiyan City to its original state. Hearing this, Xiaode's eyes lit up slightly, and there was a smile on her face. It is Xiaode's honor to be able to serve the master. Chen Hao nodded slightly, and his figure disappeared. Xiaode watched Chen Hao leave. She withdrew her gaze and looked at the land in front of her that had turned into a city and turned into a canyon. A pair of wings of light spread out behind her. A huge realm of immortality spreads out with Fluttershy as the center. The realm of eternal life covers 1,000 miles. Covered by the golden light of the eternal realm, the earth slowly recovered. Thunder Silver City, which had disappeared before, slowly appeared. As Laiyan City returned to its original appearance, people reappeared and resurrected one after another on the streets. Other side. Chen Hao returned to the palace in the God realm. He sat on the sofa and looked at the pebbles he had placed on the table. Chen Hao touched his chin. Now the spiritual body of red phosphorus is attached to this small stone. But he seemed unable to speak. The stone really cannot speak. Maybe I can change its appearance and give it the ability to speak. The question is, what should I turn this stone into? Whatever. Thinking about it, Chen Hao stretched out his hand. The black mist submerged into the stones, and the shapes of the stones began to change. As the black fog dissipated, a creature less than the size of a palm appeared on the table. This creature is black and white, looks like a bear, has a pair of dark circles under its eyes, and is furry all over, just like a black and white sphere. Yes, this is a panda. However, compared to normal pandas, the panda in front of you is only the size of a hamster. The panda blinked and looked up at Chen Hao. Their eyes met. Chen Hao showed a smile. Can you speak now? The panda's pupils condensed. It raised its paw and looked at its own paw. Its face showed a hint of fear and anxiety. It looked at Chen Hao. What have you done to me? What have you turned me into? Mind the sound, is abominable. Its voice became the tone of a child. After all, it was speaking with the voice of a panda the size of a small hamster, so its voice would naturally change. Chen Hao smiled. It seemed he succeeded. Chen Hao said with a smile, it turns into a very cute creature. I believe you will like it. You. The red phosphorus pupils that turned into pandas froze, and he quickly got up and ran out. But here is the table. Chi Phosphorus ran to the edge of the table, looked down, and looked at the ground below. Chi Phosphorus seemed to realize something and took a few steps back. He gritted his teeth and immediately looked at Chen Hao. Let me go. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. If you want me to let you go, you can, but you have to answer a few questions. Problem, Red Phosphorus frowned. What problem? Chen Hao said, I want to know about your civilization. Chi Phosphorus was startled, and he frowned. Don't even think about it. You destroyed my body and turned me into this, and you still want to get information from me. You are dreaming. If you have the ability, kill me. Got me. He stared at Chen Hao angrily. Hearing this, Chen Hao touched his chin. You really don't want to say anything. Chi Phosphorus stared at Chen Hao without saying a word, but his pupils were full of anger. It seems that this guy already hates himself. He knew clearly that his life was in his hands, but he still didn't want to answer his question. Very characterful. Chen Hao smiled. In this case, I can only use another method. Red Phosphorus was startled. What do you want to do? Chen Hao stretched out his big hand and grabbed the red phosphorus. Red Phosphorus's face changed. You. Let me go. Red Phosphorus was held in Chen Hao's hand. He pushed Chen Hao's hand with his paws, but with a hamster body, how could he push Chen Hao away? Chen Hao looked at the red phosphorus in his hand. Now, all you have left is a soul. This panda body is the body I needed for you. This is the body of a monster. Your soul is attached to this body in the body of a monster. No matter how much you don't want it, you are no longer a human being, but a monster. When Chi Phosphorus heard this, he frowned and stared at Chen Hao. What do you want to say? Chen Hao showed a smile. In this world, Warcraft has a characteristic, that is, it can be turned into cards and then tamed. When Red Phosphorus heard this, his expression suddenly changed. You want to tame me? You're dreaming. Chen Hao smiled. Really? Then give it a try. Change. Red Phosphorus's body disappeared and turned into a card. Cub stage panda cub. Taming, 0. Chen Hao opened the universal book and put the cards into the universal book. Chen Hao closed the omnipotent book and crossed his arms over his chest. It's really difficult to deal with. If there is no universal book, there is really nothing you can do with it, but with the universal book, that may not be the case. Chen Hao looked at the blue crystal-shaped database next to him. He said, how much do you know about the civilization of Red Phosphorus? There is no record of this civilization in the database. A mechanical voice sounded in Chen Hao's mind. The database is not omnipotent. Or, the database level is not enough for it to have the information of Jilin's civilization. It can be seen that the level of Jilin's civilization is not low. Forget it, I'll ask Jilin tomorrow and I'll know. I just don't know if the universal book can tame Jilin. The next day, Chen Hao sat on the sofa in the living room and opened the universal book. Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly when he saw it. There was a card in the card slot of the universal book. Infant baby panda. Taming degree, 100%. This should be okay, right? Thinking of this, Chen Hao took out the card and put it on the table. Transform. The card turned into a panda. But it was still different from the normal panda. Yesterday's panda was only as big as a hamster, but now this panda is the size of a fist. After the panda appeared, it closed its eyes, and then slowly opened its eyes. It looked at Chen Hao and their eyes met. Its eyes lit up slightly. Master. It sat on the table with its big eyes staring at Chen Hao. Looking at its obviously excited and happy look. Chen Hao's heart moved, and he succeeded. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Do you remember who you are?" The panda said, "Remember, I am Jilin, a life created by the Master, and everything I have is given by the Master." "Well, but you didn't say that yesterday." Chen Hao crossed his arms. Jilin hurriedly stood up and said, "That's because Jilin forgot the Master's kindness. Now Jilin remembers it. Master, please don't be angry." Then, Jilin hurriedly said, "Master, if you have anything you want to know, just ask." As long as Jilin knows, Jilin will tell the Master. Looking at Jilin's flattering attitude, Chen Hao couldn't help but sigh at the power of the Universal Book, which completely brainwashed Jilin. I don't know what memories the Universal Book has added to Jilin. Forget it, it doesn't matter. As long as I can get the information I want, it's fine. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 354. Chen Hao crossed his arms and looked at the red phosphorus in the form of a panda. What is the name of your civilization? Where are they now? Hearing this, Chi Phosphorus sat on the table, raised his face, and looked at Chen Hao with his panda eyes. The civilization I am in is called the Emerald Green Civilization. At that time, the VAF continent and the Demon continent were still close to each other, which was smaller than the current continent. Even bigger, it was called Greenland at that time. 600,000 years ago, the resources of the Green continent were exhausted, and the entire world became a desert, with no water and no green at all. Chen Hao was stunned and frowned. Why are these words that Red Phosphorus said completely different from what I have seen so far? Red Phosphorus said, afterwards, the leaders chose to abandon Green Star, go to other worlds, and choose a place suitable for us to live. No, Chen Hao said aloud, according to what you said, Green Star should be a desert now, but now, so what? Chi Phosphorus said, because before they were about to leave, some scientists conceived a plan. They wanted to use the power of technology to restore Green Star to its original appearance. That plan is nano-elves, which is what people in this world call magic elements. Wait a minute. Chen Hao frowned and hurriedly shouted to stop. He looked at Red Phosphorus and frowned. You mean, magic element, is something you have researched? Red Phosphorus hummed, yes, nano-elf is a bionic robot smaller than a nanometer. It has various unique abilities. For example, they can be converted into fire ions, water molecules, plant cells, etc. More importantly, these nanogoblins can also transform the desert into new nanogoblins. Red Phosphorus looked at Chen Hao. At that time, scientists created a group of nanogoblins and put these nanogoblins into the world, but only by relying on the newly cultivated nano-elves are simply not enough to change the situation on Green Star in a short period of time. Scientists estimate that it will take 500,000 years for the nanogoblins to change the world back to its previous appearance, but the people on the entire planet can't wait any longer. In the end, they chose to leave the planet and move on to other places. Find the right place. Having said this, Chi Phosphorus paused and frowned. However, it's very strange. Through calculation, it clearly takes 500,000 years, but in terms of time, it only takes no more time for this planet to transform from a desert to one with life. It took more than 100,000 years. Then, the nano-elves actually chose to condense themselves into human form and turned into life. The nano-elves that were originally used to transform the environment turned into so-called magic elements and appeared in a world that was already devoid of any life. New humans, these are things that scientists have never imagined. After hearing what Chi Phosphorus said, Chen Hao's outlook on life felt like it was shattering. This world full of alien magic, a world full of magic elements and magical beasts, is actually just a unique world created by nanorobots left behind by the technology of ancient civilizations. Didn't I say that the end of science is fantasy? How come this world is reversed, and the end of fantasy is science? Wait a minute. Chen Hao suddenly said. Chi Phosphorus looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at Red Phosphorus. According to what you say, shouldn't you follow those guys and leave this galaxy? Hearing this, Chi Phosphorus smiled bitterly, and then said, there were too many humans at that time, and the fleet could not accommodate so many humans, so some people would be abandoned. And I am one of those people. Chen Hao was startled. In an instant, Chen Hao understood. No wonder he asked Red Phosphorus in the arena, since your civilization has left, why are you still here? Red Phosphorus will become angry. So that's it? Red Phosphorus said, many people like me have died, and I don't know why. Those nanogoblins attached themselves to my body and saved my spiritual body. After a long period of time, I was swallowed by the ocean, and my whole body was pressed under the deep sea. I don't know how many years have passed, but I have recovered my memory, but my body cannot move. Those nanogoblins have been condensing into me over time. To be honest, my consciousness was vague in that world, and I don't know how much time passed. It was only in the past few years that I regained my sanity and gained this unique power. Speaking of this, Chi Phosphorus looked at Chen Hao, until I meet you, the master. Hearing this, Chen Hao understood. If the energy of Green Planet is used up, then why doesn't Green Civilization try to survive in the Gem World or Endless Cave? I remember that there is energy there. Chen Hao looked at Red Phosphorus. When Chi Phosphorus heard this, he smiled bitterly. As far as I know, the Gem World and the Endless Cave did not exist at that time. 600,000 years ago, there were 10 planets in this galaxy. Among the 10 planets, only the green star had life. The other planets did not have any conditions for the survival of life at all. When Chen Hao heard this, he frowned and nodded silently. Do you know about the environmental modification rings on other planets? Chen Hao looked at the Red Phosphorus. Hearing this, Red Phosphorus nodded slightly. After I gained power, I tried to visit other planets. When I was left behind, other planets did not have environmental modification rings. In other words, those star environment transformation rings are not left by the Green Civilization. But, I can't be sure, Qi Lin suddenly said. Qi Lin sat on the table, with his panda paws clasped in front of his chest. I slept for a very long time. I don't know if the Green Civilization came back during that time. I also don't know if those planetary environmental transformation rings were created by the Green Civilization after it came back. I don't know any of this, Qi Lin said. Well, no wonder, after all, for the Green Civilization, Qi Lin is an abandoned existence. In other words, if I want to know what this galaxy is like, I have to meet someone from the real Green Civilization and ask them. Maybe there will be an answer later. According to what Qi Lin said, Chen Hao can basically see it. The main god of Green Star, or the main god of this planet, which should be called Waf Star now, is actually derived from the Nano Fairy. Speaking of the god of creation, the scientists of the Green Civilization are the real god of creation of the current human, demon, and other races. Chen Hao scratched his forehead. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Chen Hao stood up and looked at Qi Lin. You are free to move around. If you have any other questions, I will call you. Qi Lin nodded. Okay, master. Chen Hao turned and left, returning to the bedroom. Chen Hao lay on the bed and looked at the familiar ceiling above. The information Qi Lin gave was really hard for Chen Hao to digest. If this world was created like this, then Chen Hao couldn't help but think of the winged god he had met before. What role did that guy play in the creation of this world? What kind of existence is she? I don't understand. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 355. However, like red phosphorus, an existence abandoned by the green civilization, he can become so powerful after such a long time. That, green civilization, how powerful is that civilization that has been developed for more than 600,000 years? If they return to this galaxy and have some conflict with themselves, will they be their opponents? It's probably very suspenseful, Chen Hao muttered. Perhaps, if we want to deal with the green civilization, it depends on whether Little Diamond can continue to improve his strength. Looking at it now, even if green civilization will come back, it won't be a while. Chen Hao thought of Little Diamond's ability to predict the future. Chen Hao frowned. Could it be that the future enemy predicted by Little Diamond is the green civilization? After thinking about it, Chen Hao stood up. Change a card appeared in front of Chen Hao. It is the card of red phosphorus as a baby panda. Transform. The figure of red phosphorus appeared in front of Chen Hao. When he saw Chen Hao, Chi Phosphorus had a hint of doubt in his eyes. Master. Chen Hao smiled. It's okay, I just want to ask you something. Are the soldiers of green civilization strong? Chi Phosphorus was startled, then he thought for a moment and said, before the green civilization left Green Planet, they were not very powerful, but after more than 600,000 years of development, the current strength of green civilization is unknown. Asking is like asking in vain. Apparently, red phosphorus didn't know. Chen Hao touched the back of his head. Okay, it's okay. You can go out first. Okay. Red phosphorus turned and left. Looking at the figure of red phosphorus, Chen Hao crossed his arms over his chest and fell into thinking. He leaned back and lay on the bed, looking at the sky. What are you thinking about? They may not come back, and even if they come back, I may not become their enemy. Chen Hao smiled. Maybe we can become friends. We'll talk about tomorrow's affairs tomorrow. Now let's take a shower and have a good sleep. Thinking about it, Chen Hao stood up. For Chen Hao, the emergence of red phosphorus is just an episode in daily life. After this episode, daily life resumed. Time passes little by little in the leisurely life day after day. In the universe tens of thousands of light years away from this galaxy, a spaceship is approaching Chen Hao's galaxy. Inside the spaceship, there are two humanoid creatures. One of the creatures said, according to the monitoring satellite we left on the Green Star, the environment of the Green Star has been restored and is now ready for us to live in. However, due to the influence of the nano-elves in the Green Star, color production, many highly intelligent life forms have developed their own civilizations and have occupied a lot of resources and land. Another creature said lightly, Green Planet is our planet, and the newly emerged civilization has only two choices, to become our slaves or to die. Next to the supergiant space airship, a group of space airships followed it, quickly flying towards Chen Hao's galaxy. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years have passed. In the Grey Elf Forest, a statue of Chen Hao stands in the open space. The little skeleton stood next to the statue, staring at the giant statue that was more than 10 meters tall. There were red light spots in his pupils, and the light spots were trembling slightly. Uncle Little Skeleton, suddenly, a voice came. The little skeleton was startled. He came to his senses and looked back at the source behind him. I saw a girl in a white dress trotting over here. When the little skull saw the smiling girl, his eyes softened. He smiled and said, Little girl, why didn't you play with your friends today? Come here to see me. What's the matter? Little Skull still remembers that when he first met this girl 5 years ago, she was still a chubby little doll, so Little Skull and Sword Demon named her Little Girl. But now, this young girl has become so graceful and graceful. The girl smiled and said, "Uncle Skeleton, I want to learn sword skills." Ah, the little skeleton was stunned for a moment, and he touched the back of his head, learning sword skills. Yeah, the little girl nodded repeatedly and said with a smile, "My gray elf friends are now starting to learn magic from Uncle Leiling. I also want to become stronger, so I thought, if they learn magic, then I will learn its sword skills. Uncle Skeleton is so strong, he can definitely teach me, right?" The little skeleton was stunned. This. When the little girl heard this, she hummed playfully, "Humph." She puffed her cheeks, "If Uncle Skeleton doesn't teach me, then I'll go find Uncle Sword Demon. Uncle Sword Demon will definitely teach me. Uncle Sword Demon's sword skills will definitely be much better than Uncle Skeleton." Having said this, the little girl made a face at the little skeleton, stuck out her tongue, then turned around and left. When the little skeleton heard this, its eyes glowed red. "Wait a minute." The little girl was startled. She turned back to look at the little skeleton and smiled, "Uncle Skeleton, what do you say?" The little skeleton said, "Nonsense, my sword skills are much better than that guy's sword demon. I'm here to teach you." When the little girl heard this, she laughed. She ran to the little skeleton, held the hand of the little skeleton, shook it, and said with a smile, "Uncle Little Skeleton is the best." The little skeleton laughed out loud. The little girl learned sword skills from the little skeleton for a while. Then, she got bored and went to find the sword demon again. "Uncle Sword Demon, can I learn the sword from you?" The little girl looked at the sword demon. Hearing this, the sword demon glanced at the little girl and looked away. "No time." When the little girl heard this, she puffed up her face and said, "Uncle Skeleton taught me a lot of powerful sword skills. He also said that Uncle Sword Demon was not as good as him in terms of sword skills. I felt that Uncle Skeleton must be lying. The sword demon is so powerful, but now it seems, I was wrong." The sword demon was startled and looked at the little girl. "Are you wrong? What's wrong?" The little girl laughed and said, "If Uncle Sword Demon's sword skills are great, then I want to learn them, and Uncle Sword Demon will definitely teach me. Now Uncle Skeleton is teaching me sword skills, but Uncle Sword Demon dare not teach them, because Uncle Sword Demon must be afraid of being I know. Uncle Sword Demon's sword skills are not as good as Uncle Skeleton, otherwise why wouldn't he teach him?" Hearing this, the sword demon's pupils condensed. That guy from Little Skeleton is talking nonsense. "Okay, I'll teach you sword skills. Let you see, which one is more powerful, is my sword skills or the sword skills of that broken skull." Hee, the little girl smiled. At the same time, within the ocean star, Chen Hao sat on a rock and looked at the blue ocean in front of him. The time of ocean star is 5 times faster than the time of the outside world. It has been 5 years since I last left this ocean star. According to the time of ocean star, it should have been 20 years. I wonder if that high honking guy is dead. Suddenly, there was movement. Wow! Chen Hao looked at the sea and saw bubbles rising on the surface. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the sea. A familiar figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. Seeing this familiar figure, Chen Hao smiled. The familiar appearance of the young man in front of him made Chen Hao a little happy. Chen Hao said with a smile, "We meet again." In front of Chen Hao, the young man standing on the sea was Hai Huangqing. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 356. Hearing Chen Hao's words, the man was startled at first, then showed a smile, raised his hand and put it in front of his chest, bowed slightly to Chen Hao, and said with an elegant smile, "My name is Hai Huangming, Hai Huangqing is my father. I think you are the immortal that my father often mentioned." Chen Hao was stunned. "Are you Hai Huangqing's son? Are you so old?" Although Chen Hao realized that it had been 5 years since he last came to Ocean Star, that was equivalent to 20 years. But in Chen Hao's impression, the Hai Huangqing he saw last time was just a young man. But now a guy about the same age as Hai Huangqing appeared, saying he was Hai Huangqing's son. This made Chen Hao feel a little novel. However, it is true, Hai Huangqing's personality is relatively stable and serious, and although the person in front of him looks like Hai Huangqing, his personality is relatively sunny and cheerful at first glance. Not the same person. Hai Huangming smiled, showed a respectful expression, and lowered his head slightly. "I heard from my father that it has been 20 years since you last came here. I was just born 20 years ago. My father, now in the palace, I will tell my father about your coming again and ask him to come and greet you." Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly and said with a smile, "Okay." Hai Huangming saluted Chen Hao again, then turned around and left, submerging his body into the sea. Seeing Hai Huangming's disappearing figure, Chen Hao raised his face and looked at the blue sky above. "Time flies here. I still remember that when I first met Hai Huangqing, he was still a teenager, but now the children have grown up." Chen Hao lay down on the reef, lying on the stone, looking at the blue sky and white clouds in the sky. "Brother Hao," suddenly, a voice sounded. Hearing the sound, Chen Hao came back to his senses and looked at the source of the sound. "I saw a figure standing on the sea." Chen Hao took a closer look. Standing in front of Chen Hao was a middle-aged man with a strong figure, but wrinkles could be seen on his face. He was wearing luxurious clothing. The light blue robe was made of scales, which glowed blue under the light. You can also see strips of gold threads on these exquisite scales, which looked particularly luxurious. There was an inexplicable sense of majesty and momentum from him. There is a feeling of being above tens of millions of people, which is a sense of majesty that can only be possessed by people who have been in high positions all year round. From his appearance, Chen Hao could recognize his identity. Hai Huangqing. Hai Huangqing looked at Chen Hao, his eyes glowing. "Brother Hao," the low voice and slightly serious eyes. Chen Hao sat up, leaned against him, and said with a smile, "Long time no see, it feels good to see you again." Hai Huangqing looked at Chen Hao, then withdrew his gaze, then walked to the beach and sat on a rock next to Chen Hao. He looked at Chen Hao. "It's been 20 years. During the 20-year war, the Sea royal family ushered in victory. At that time, thanks to your blessing, my strength increased by leaps and bounds. My father took a fancy to me. 6 years ago, my father gave way to me and I became the new emperor of the sea." Speaking of this, Hai Huangqing looked at Chen Hao. "This is all thanks to Brother Hao." Chen Hao held his hands like a raccoon, looked at Hai Huangqing, and said with a smile, "For me, it's just a little effort. I gave you a good physique, but the most important thing to become stronger through exercise is to rely on yourself." Hearing this, Hai Huangqing shook his head. "My efforts are indeed important, but without Brother Hao's help from the beginning, I will always be just a waste of the Hai royal clan. I have always wanted to thank Brother Hao, and now I have become famous, but, Brother Hao is an immortal. I have always wanted to thank Brother Hao, but I have never been able to find a way." Until 6 years ago, as he said that, Hai Huangqing put his hand into his sleeve pocket. Seeing Hai Huangqing's actions, Chen Hao had a hint of doubt in his eyes. Hai Huangqing took something out of his sleeve pocket and handed it to Chen Hao. Chen Hao was startled. "What is this?" Chen Hao stretched out his hand and took it. When he looked at it, Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. "This thing is a diamond, the size of a pigeon egg." This pigeon egg-sized diamond is surrounded by a colorful halo. If it were just an ordinary diamond, it would be just a simple piece of jewelry, but the problem was that Chen Hao could feel a strong condensed energy aura from this thing. This is Bayu. Yes, and this is the Diamond Man's gem, and the energy is very powerful. Chen Hao had never felt such a powerful energy fluctuation before. Although these energies were condensed together, the slight fluctuations they emitted were enough to shock Chen Hao. The energy of this thing is more powerful than that of a small diamond using its full strength. Chen Hao frowned. What's going on? In the Ocean Star, why are there diamonds and jade? 6 years ago, my father abdicated the throne to me, and he also passed this thing on to me. Hai Huangqing said. I heard from my father that when he was young, there was an immortal and another. The immortals were fighting in the sky, and one of the immortals fell during the battle, and his body fell to the ground and turned into countless pieces. My clan members discovered it from those fragments. The clan members speculated that this may be the immortal's spirit bead. After that, my clan members have kept this thing until now. During this long time, the leader of my tribe has studied it for a long time, but he has not found a way to use it. Speaking of this, Hai Huangqing paused, and he looked at Chen Hao. Then, I think Brother Hao is also an immortal. Since Brother Hao is an immortal, then Brother Hao should be able to use this thing from the immortal. Change, Chen Hao said. The voice fell. The gem turned into a card. 9th level gem, 9th level diamond gem. Seeing this, Chen Hao immediately thought of a question. That question is, why don't there exist creatures above the 6th level diamond on the gem star? Seeing this, Chen Hao seemed to realize the answer to that question. Powerful gem beasts can have the ability to leave the planet like small diamonds. In other words, it is possible that some powerful beings will leave the planet after reaching a certain level and go to other planets. And the owner of this 9th level gem is likely to be a guy who left the gem star and ran to this ocean star. However, this guy probably encountered a more terrifying existence and was killed. This thing is really helpful to Chen Hao. Now Little Diamond has reached the 8th level gem realm, and she needs this thing. Suddenly, Chen Hao's heart moved, and he looked at Hai Huangqing. When did your father meet this immortal? Hearing this, Hai Huangqing said, that was when my father was still young, about 70 years ago. 70 years ago, according to the time of Ocean Star, that is 14 years ago. 14 years ago? Chen Hao frowned. 14 years ago, there was a strong man who could kill the 9th level diamond man. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 357. Like the 9th level diamond man who existed on Ocean Star 16 years ago, but it is certain that there were no 6th level gems or above on Gem Star 16 years ago. Because Lan is already over 16 years old, since Lan is definitely not there, it means that there were no 6th level gems or above on Gem Star 16 years ago. That means that the 9th level diamond man on Ocean Star had left Gem Star and came to Ocean Star a long time ago, and lived on Ocean Star for a while. Then he was killed. It is unknown whether it was the same Gembeastman or another existence that killed it. But it is very likely that the existence is still on this Ocean Star. Thinking of this, Chen Hao looked at Hai Huangqing. Did your father tell you where the other immortal who didn't die is now? Hai Huangqing heard it and said, I heard from my father that the immortal left after killing this immortal. I don't know where he is now. Chen Hao nodded slightly. He looked at Hai Huangqing. He smiled. Indeed, this thing is very important to me. But I won't take your things for nothing, as he said. Chen Hao flipped through the universal book and took out a card from the universal book. Transform. The card turned into a stick. Chen Hao handed the stick to Hai Huangqing. Hai Huangqing took it and looked up and down. Chen Hao said with a smile, this thing has been with me for a while, but I'm not interested in fighting, so I never used it. Now I give it to you. I believe it will be more useful in your hands than in mine. Hai Huangqing was startled. he looked at Chen Hao. "Brother Hao, is this a fairy weapon?" "You can say that," Chen Hao said with a smile. "The name of this thing is Ruyi Bang. You can control the size when you use it. It can become a pillar of the sky when it is big, and it can be smaller than a hair when it is small." Hai Huangqing's eyes lit up, and then he seemed to think of. He said, "This is indeed a very powerful immortal weapon, but Brother Hao, I can't accept it. I gave you this spiritual pearl to thank you for taking care of me. If I accept your immortal weapon now, it would be equivalent to an exchange. This is different from what I want to do, and I can't accept it." Chen Hao smiled. He stretched out his hand and patted Hai Huangqing on the shoulder. "Since you call me Brother Hao, then this is a gift from Brother Hao to you, keep it well." As he said, Chen Hao stood up. "Then the time is almost up, I should go back." Hearing this, Hai Huangqing also stood up. Chen Hao's figure disappeared on the spot. Looking at the place where Chen Hao disappeared, Hai Huangqing's eyes were shining. He raised his hand and placed it in front of his chest, bowed slightly to Chen Hao, and then looked at the place where Chen Hao disappeared, with a trace of loneliness in his eyes. "I don't know when we will meet next time." In the palace of the God Realm, Chen Hao sat on the sofa and looked at the card of the 9th level gem in his hand. "Unexpectedly, I accidentally got this thing when I went to see an old friend today. And, I also got some shocking information. According to Chen Hazai, the only threat to him now is the green civilization that may appear at any time. But if the green civilization has really come back, they will definitely appear on the WAF star. But as it seems now, there seems to be a very powerful force in this galaxy that is enough to kill a 9th level diamond man. Is that person from the green civilization? Or is it a third party? Chen Hao doesn't know. Chen Hao vaguely feels that the power he currently has is not enough and is beyond his control." Change. A card floated in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the card in front of him. Change. The card turned into a beautiful figure, which was Little Diamond. The slender Little Diamond appeared in front of Chen Hao. She was closing her eyes, and her eyes slowly opened, revealing a pair of diamond eyes. She looked at Chen Hao. "Master." Her eyes were full of doubt. Little Diamond is very busy now. She needs to go to the gem star to collect gems every day. Under normal circumstances, Chen Hao will not call her back. Seeing Chen Hao calling her back, Little Diamond was a little confused. Chen Hao smiled. "I got this today." As he said that, Chen Hao handed the card to Little Diamond. Little Diamond took a look and took it. Looking at the card of the 9th level gem in her hand, Little Diamond's eyes lit up slightly, and she looked at Chen Hao with surprise. "Master, this is the 9th level gem." Her eyes were full of surprise. "Great, in this way, it should be about time." Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao and smiled. "Thank you, Master." As he said that, Little Diamond said, "Transform." The card turned into a 9th level gem, and she opened her mouth and threw the gem directly into her mouth. She swallowed the jade and looked at Chen Hao. "Master, it's done." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. "You are really decisive. If it was given to other beasts, those beasts would definitely want to talk to Chen Hao more. But Diamond swallowed it directly after thanking her, very quickly, decisively. Of course, Chen Hao also knew why Diamond was like this. She was worried that her strength would improve too slowly and she would not be able to deal with future enemies. Changed. Diamond's body turned into a card. Chen Hao looked at the card in front of him. "In the future, I will definitely encounter some more powerful beings. Those guys are stronger than Xiaoying and the others. My only support is this Little Diamond. She is under a lot of pressure." Chen Hao reached out and took the card. "Put the card into the Universal Book. She needs to rest in the Universal Book to absorb the power brought by the 9th level gem. I don't know what changes will happen to her body after she absorbs it." Chen Hao didn't pay much attention before, and didn't know that she could become so big after entering the 8th level gem realm. The 8th level gem, her body can be as big as 10,000 meters, what about the 9th level? How big can it be? Frankly speaking, Chen Hao is a little curious about this. With expectation, Chen Hao closed the book. As time went by, Chen Hao discovered. As the power of the gem became stronger and stronger, the time it took for the little diamond to absorb energy gradually became longer. This time, it took the little diamond a whole week to absorb this 9th level gem. After the little diamond finished absorbing, Chen Hao came to the outside of the universe. He stood in the void and took out a card from the universal book. 9th level gem, 9th level diamond. Seeing this, Chen Hao waved his hand and the card flew out. Transform. The card transformed into the body of the little diamond, and the figure of the little diamond appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao wanted to see how big the little diamond of the 9th level diamond could become. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 358. The little diamond that just emerged from the card was still the same size as before, about 1.4 meters tall, slender, and made of diamonds. She was closing her eyes, and then slowly opened them, revealing a pair of bright eyes. She looked at Chen Hao, and when she saw Chen Hao, she immediately smiled, opened her mouth, and wanted to say something. She was stunned, and there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. Chen Hao smiled. We are now in the universe. You can't speak in this place. However, you can communicate with mental power. Well, that's how it is. The voice of the little diamond sounded in Chen Hao's mind. She said, then Master, my strength is still not enough now. I have to continue to collect black gems on the gem star. Now the time is almost up. As long as we go to collect, the time should be almost up. The bitter face of the little diamond became much more relaxed, and there was a smile and joy on her face. Seeing the expression of the little diamond, Chen Hao's heart moved. He smiled. It seems that during that period of time, little diamond was fighting the pressure brought by the future powerful enemy alone. She seemed to be able to realize that she could not keep up with the speed of increasing her strength, so she was always so anxious. Now with the help of Chen Hao, after swallowing this 9th level gem, she is much more relaxed. Chen Hao crossed his arms and smiled, don't worry. Before that, I want to ask you a few questions. Little diamond's eyes shone with a gleam. What does the master want to know? Before, when I saw you fighting with red phosphorus, your body could become very large. At that time, your body was estimated to be tens of thousands of meters. Is that your limit? Little diamond explained, well, I have a lot of energy. The smaller the body, the more energy you can use. So you need a larger body to use more powerful energy. When I was an 8th level gem, my body limit was as high as you see, Master. Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly. What about you now? When little diamond heard it, she said, I can show you my limit body size now, Master, but I don't know how high it is. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, okay, you will grow bigger now. Yeah, okay, little diamond responded. Under Chen Hao's gaze, little diamond's small body glowed with colorful light. Then, little diamond's body grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Too fast. Chen Hao immediately used teleportation to run away so as not to hinder the growth of the little diamond. But when Chen Hao flew out of 1,000 meters, the little diamond continued to grow in size, and soon occupied 1,000 meters of space. Chen Hao continued to teleport away. He flew out of a distance of 10,000 meters and looked at the little diamond in front of him from a distance. At first sight, Chen Hao suddenly felt a strong sense of shock. The little diamond's size has changed from about 1.4 meters in height at the beginning to an extremely huge giant. Database, I want to know how tall she is now, Chen Hao said. The database projected a blue screen, through which you can see the human-shaped image of the little diamond, and at the same time you can see the body height displayed next to the image. 10,000 meters. 16,000 meters. 20,000 meters. 27,000 meters. 30,000 meters. Seeing this height data change rapidly, Chen Hao was a little shocked. The height of the little diamond continued to increase. When the height data changed to more than 600,000 meters, it stopped increasing. At this moment, diamond's size was too shocking. "Master, this is my largest size at the moment," diamond's voice came. Chen Hao said, "Wait a minute, don't move." Chen Hao moved closer to diamond through teleportation. When Chen Hao felt that he was getting close, he controlled his body to move with magic at the same time, and his body moved quickly in the direction of diamond. As his body got closer, he was approaching diamond's palm. As he got closer, Chen Hao could no longer see diamond's full picture. If he continued to move forward, he could not even see the whole palm. Suddenly, Chen Hao felt a sense of gravity coming. That feeling was like the sense of gravity after entering the atmosphere of a planet. After Chen Hao felt the gravity, his body was pulled by gravity to move quickly closer to diamond's palm. Chen Hao landed on the ground. Chen Hao stood on the ground and looked at the ground around him. From the ground, one diamond-shaped object after another could be seen. Chen Hao squatted down and looked at the diamond-shaped object below. At sight, "Isn't this a cell?" Chen Hao's scalp suddenly went numb. What he could see were the cells that made up little diamond's palm. The skin cells of little diamond that Chen Hao saw were actually larger than his own body. Chen Hao looked at the skin made up of countless cells in front of him in disbelief. At this moment, little diamond's size could no longer be described as a giant. Little diamond was now a humanoid planet. Her body had generated gravity similar to that of a planet. Although it was weak, Chen Hao could feel it completely. A planetary-level beast. This meant that the size and mass of the beast were comparable to a planet. Is this a planetary-level beast? Chen Hao felt goosebumps all over his body. If, let diamond continue to grow stronger, if let diamond reach the level of a 10th order gem, how big will she become? Chen Hao took a deep breath and adjusted his emotions. He said, "Diamond, it's okay, return to your original size." Yes, diamond's voice sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao saw the ground under his feet glowing with colorful halos. Diamond's size quickly shrank. In the blink of an eye, diamond's figure returned to its previous size. Chen Hao came in front of diamond. Diamond saw Chen Hao and smiled, "Master, I'll go first." Chen Hao nodded slightly. Diamond was about to move. "Wait a minute," Chen Hao said. Diamond was startled and looked back at Chen Hao behind her. Chen Hao said, "No matter what, you should not use your maximum size on any planet with life. If you encounter a strong one, you have to leave the planet before using it." When Diamond heard this, she smiled, "I understand, Master, I'll go then." Yes, Chen Hao nodded slightly. Diamond's figure disappeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the place where Diamond disappeared, and the shock in his heart could not stop for a long time. Diamond, who was 600,000 meters high, did not feel it from a distance just now. When he got closer, Chen Hao realized how huge Diamond's body was. The human-shaped appearance can generate its own gravity, is the maximum size of a planetary beast, a beast that can be as big as a planet. It's better not to let Diamond become this size on a planet. A size of 600,000 meters can already be considered a planet. It would be absolutely destructive for the planet to become that appearance on the planet at will. In this galaxy, no planet can withstand the horrific impact of Diamond's body mass. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wu Nian. Chapter 359. Little Diamond returned to the gem star again to continue to obtain new black gems to gain energy. After Chen Hao saw the size of the 9th level diamond, he became interested in the evolution of beast control again. Since the last time he learned about the current bottleneck of beast controlling evolution through the database, Chen Hao has been lying flat. Because according to the database, the only way at present is to gain enough energy to evolve through a long period of time like a small diamond. But now, Chen Hao has motivation again. Because he wanted to know how far Little Diamond would evolve if he continued to evolve. Now at the 9th level, the size of the Little Diamond is already large enough to be comparable to a celestial body. If Little Diamond continues to evolve, how far can it go? Also, is there really no other way? Chen Hao was lying on the bed, thinking. He looked at the database floating beside him. Database, I have a question. Now it seems that the current gem energy of the gem star should be generated from the gem star. In that case, can I make the small diamond larger and then directly swallow the gem star to obtain energy? This question is what Chen Hao has been thinking about recently. Since the gem star can create gems with gem energy, does that mean that the gem star itself is a huge gem? If so, even if the small diamond cannot directly swallow the entire gem star, it would be a good thing to let the small diamond swallow the island where the black gem mine is located to obtain energy. This allows small diamonds to quickly become powerful. It is true that gems are produced through gem stars, but before gems containing pure gem energy appear, the energy contained in those gem mines cannot be absorbed by small diamonds. The database in the form of crystal glowed with a faint halo. As a faint blue halo lit up, the mechanical sound of the database rang in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao frowned. You mean, this gem star is similar to an energy converter? They can convert gem mines into gems with gem energy. Yes, the gem star can convert all the materials that enter the gem star into ores, and then breed life energy in the ores, which is what you call gem energy. That energy is what small diamonds need. The database gave an explanation. Chen Hao frowned and looked at the ceiling above. Wait a minute, the current size of Little Diamond is as high as 600,000 meters, and it is very huge in terms of mass and size. It is almost a celestial body that can be inhabited by humans. Although the current size of Little Diamond is not as big as the gem star, it is definitely not small. And all the energy of Little Diamond comes from the gem star, so. Chen Hao looked at the database beside him. How about the gem star? Aren't you going to get smaller and smaller? No, the mass of gem stars has been increasing at present, the database explained. Chen Hao was startled. It converts matter into precious jade. How can it keep increasing? Under normal circumstances, the mass of a planet is always increasing. Gem stars are planets and have their own gravity. This gravity will absorb a large amount of cosmic dust and various large and small meteorites every day. In addition, the environmental modification ring will help stabilize the atmosphere of the gem star, so that the material in the gem star will not be blown away by the stellar wind due to the influence of the universe. Currently, the material consumed by the gemstone to regenerate gemstone energy does not exceed the material it obtains every day, so the mass of the gemstone is increasing every day. Hearing this, Chen Hao understood. The galaxy I am in is actually just like the solar system I was in before. The entire galaxy wanders around in this vast universe every day. The universe is not a pure vacuum, but there are countless cosmic dusts in the vast universe. When galaxies pass by, the attraction of planets will absorb these cosmic dusts and turn these cosmic dusts into their own mass. No wonder. I just said, if the gem star keeps consuming its own quality, why won't it be drained by itself? Hey, let me ask you, can we use some kind of technological power to imitate the gem star and convert matter into gem energy? Chen Hao looked at the database. Since the gem star is a natural material converter, does that mean that I can also obtain this ability in some way? When the Beast Master evolves to the planetary level, he can gain special abilities. The mechanical voice of the database rang in Chen Hao's ears. Hearing this, Chen Hao was immediately speechless. The reason why Chen Hao had this idea was to use this method to help Little Diamond quickly enter the planetary level. But now the database says that you have to enter the planetary level to gain this ability. Isn't this an international move? Never mind. There's no rush anyway. Dong dong. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Master, it was Xiaodi's voice. Chen Hao stood up and said, "What's wrong?" "Xiaobai and Flower God are back," Xiaodi's voice came. "Noob. Flower God. Oh, Yinglong and Flower Goddess." Chen Hao remembered that he had previously asked Yinglong to take the Flower Goddess to be kings of the Tailire Empire. He gave them 6 years to manage the Tailire Empire well and turn the Tailire Empire into a civilized empire. Is this coming back to hand in the mission? Thinking of this, Chen Hao smiled. He stood up, walked to the sofa and sat down. "Let them come in." The door opened. Chen Hao looked and saw Xiaobai and Flower God walking in from the door. Xiaobai was wearing a white robe, with dragon horns on his forehead, long silver white hair, and a handsome and elegant face. The Flower Goddess is wearing a beautiful red dress. She has a beautiful face, and proud figure, fair skin, and a pair of red eyes, which makes her look charming. After the two came in, they saw Chen Hao. They put their hands on their chests and bowed slightly to salute Chen Hao. "Master, we have fulfilled our mission and completed the task you gave us." In unison. Chen Hao smiled, "Is it done?" Xiaobai nodded slightly. Chen Hao smiled, "Thank you for your hard work. You two, sit down first and let's talk slowly." Xiaobai and Flower God sat obediently on the sofa opposite Chen Hao. Chen Hao's eyes fell on Xiaobai, and he smiled and said, "How is the specific situation?" When Xiaobai heard this, he said, "The master asked me and the Flower God to manage the Tauril Empire together and make the Tailire Empire an empire of freedom and equality. At the beginning, I thought this task would be simple. But later I found that the human heart is difficult to control. Even with the Flower God's mind control ability, it is difficult to completely control it, unless we use the Flower God's mind control to control the entire Tailire Empire. Then I know, this situation is not what you want to see, Master." So the Flower Goddess and I began to explore and understand the method of ruling the Tailire Empire, but during the time of exploration, too many things happened. Hearing this, Chen Hao looked at Yinglong and Hua Shen with a smile. These two guys look a lot more mature than before. It is estimated that they have learned a lot in the past few years. This can be considered an evolution. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 360. Chen Hao smiled and said, "What happens next? How do you solve those things?" Xiaobai said, "While we were groping, the mainland became very chaotic." "Actually, the mainland has always been in chaos," Flower God added. Xiaobai nodded in agreement. "Since we took over the Tailire Empire, it has been in chaos. This chaos not only comes from within the Tailire Empire, but also from outside the empire. There are many empires in the entire Valve continent, among which there are 3 big empires. In addition to the 3 big empires, there are also various other empires, large and small. The Tarli Empire is one of the small empires. Because it is small, the borders of the empire are always blocked. Troops from other empires or thieves came to harass us. There are often civilians on the border who are slaughtered by thieves or plundered by other armies. This situation has always existed, especially later, after our northern empire of Vav continent attacked the Thunder Silver Empire. This situation became more and more serious. Empires large and small began to fight crazily and annexed nearby forces. During that time, the borders of the Tauril Empire were constantly being harassed. Xiaobai paused at this point. During that time, we strengthened the army at the border, but the effect was very weak. We think that the Master has told us that if the Tailire Empire is to become a free and equal empire, then even the civilians on the border are existences that need protection for us. Xiaobai looked at Chen Hao, so, we want to find a suitable way to prevent people at the border from being harassed by other empires or thieves. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. After that, did you find a way? Xiaobai nodded. After our discussion, we decided to unify the VAF continent. Chen Hao's smile froze. Ah. Xiaobai said seriously, we found that no matter what we do, as long as there are other forces on our border, there will be conflicts on the border. As long as there are conflicts, the border will definitely be harassed, so my idea is to unify VAF mainland. As long as there are no hostile empires on the border can be stable. As for the thieves, as long as the Tailire Empire stabilizes and establishes imperial rule so that everyone can have food and water, drink and have something to wear, and the thieves will slowly disappear. Speaking of this, Xiaobai looked at Chen Hao, so, we decided to unify the VAF continent. After that, we used our divine power and spent a full 3 years using the power of myself and the goddess of flowers to unify the entire Valve continent, leaving only the Turil Empire in Valve continent. Chen Hao listened to what Xiaobai said. Chen Hao touched his chin and then looked at Xiaobai, Sword God and Dharma God. Xiaobai said, the Sword Temple and the Law Temple are different from other empires. They participated in the war between empires, and we did not deal with them. We just unified all the empires. Speaking of this, Xiaobai paused and looked at Chen Hao. Also, 5 years ago, the demons invaded VAF continent. I killed their demon king and more than 300,000 demons at the same time. After forcing the new demon king to sign a peace agreement, they drove them back to the demon continent. Chen Hao was silent. This was something Chen Hao never expected. Now all the humans in VAF continent have been unified. To the west of the Tailire Empire is the Warcraft Mountains, and on the other side of the mountains is the world of the beasts. Apart from the beasts, the only thing left on the other side is the Tailire Empire. The orcs rarely cross the Warcraft Mountains to invade the human world, so we did not attack the orcs, Xiaobai explained. After stabilization, Flora and I spent 2 years listing thousands of rules to protect people's equality and rights. After that, in order to facilitate management, we divided the entire Tailire Empire into 7 regions. Set up 7 lords in the large area. Those 7 lords are created by me, and they will perfectly maintain the rules I set. Then we let the lords control the small lords below to control the entire Tailire Empire. The Turil Empire has become stable. After the past 2 years, the Turil Empire has become stable, the borders are no longer harassed, and thieves have gradually disappeared. Speaking of this, Xiaobai looked at Chen Hao, then, I think the time is almost up and it's time to return to the master. I didn't expect that this seemingly simple task took me a long time. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, although I think differently, you did a good job. Xiaobai's eyes lit up slightly, and he nodded slightly, with the approval of the master, everything will be worth it. There was also a smile on the flower god's face. Chen Hao said with a smile, from now on, if you want to do anything, you can do it. If I don't have you, you can stay in the god realm and do whatever you want. Xiaobai was startled and looked at Chen Hao, Master, Xiaobai wants to do things for the master even more. So does the flower god. The flower god looked at Chen Hao with a beautiful smile on his face. Chen Hao smiled, okay, if there is anything else I need you to do, I will come to you. During the time you are away, many new companions will come in. You can take advantage of this time to get to know them. Right? Chen Hao suddenly thought of something. He looked at Xiaobai and Huashan, your life experience during this period is good. You can tell your stories and your conclusions to other companions. And experience. These will be helpful to your other brothers and sisters. Chen Hao smiled, now you are also big brothers and sisters. Xiaobai and Huashan were stunned. They looked at each other and then stood up. Both bowed to Chen Hao. Yes. Chen Hao watched Xiaobai and Huashan leave. Looking at their backs, Chen Hao put away his smile. 5 years have passed, it seems not right. How could it be? Chen Hao didn't intend to affect the balance between humans and demons. But let alone affect, this completely subverted the entire VAF star. I haven't paid much attention to VAF star in the past 5 years, but Xiaobai and Huashan actually brought me such a big surprise. Or, fright. Master, suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses. He looked at the door, only to see Xiadi standing there, with a smile on her face. Master, the god of law is here to visit. Chen Hao touched his nose and said, let him wait for me in the main hall. Yes. Chen Hao touched the back of his head. What should he do? I had promised that it would not affect the VAF continent, but now, how should I explain it to him? Forget it. Let's go and see what the god of magic is going to do here. I hope he is not here to call for punishment. If so, it will be embarrassing.